Hi everyone, I'm Ken. I wanted to make sure we get to see one of our little creatures here. This is my friend Miles, and he comes to join me every once in a while. He likes to be in videos. All right, I got to get to work now, so off you go. Cute little guy, isn't he? All right, let's take a look at what we have today. Here we have an Axman 2N. I have already primed this piece with Wraithbone. Now, before we start, I'm going to have them graphically show all the different colors I'm going to use to paint this miniature, starting from titanium white, working all the way around my palette. This is a more popular mech from the television cartoon from days of old, and today I've decided to try to replicate the same look from the television show. We will start by coloring in the yellow striping that we find all around the miniature. I'm using this nice contrast yellow to make initial marks, and as you can see, I'm not trying to be too careful here. I'm just looking to cover up different sections and find where I think it's pleasing for us to look at in terms of this lightning stripe design. And if we put a little too much or too little, we can cover it up or touch it up later. Remember, this can be whatever you would like it to be. I'm just showing you one way to paint this little guy. This, however, is your world. Maybe in your mind, these stripes are a nice crimson red, or perhaps even a forest green. Working on the back of this mech, I'm going to try to avoid the LRM-15s. We'll take care of these later. You will see me creating these stripes a little bit larger than I might want, and that's okay. We can always add or subtract from them, or maybe not. We'll find out together as we continue painting this piece. Here I'm switching to my black contrast paint. This is a nice dark color that will help fill in all this shiny white. My goal here is to cover as much of the white space as I can to help get that crisp image I'm looking for. I'm doing my best here at going back to fill in spots that I missed, but I'm not too worried about these. There's plenty of time to get some extra color to the miniature. One of the best parts of painting here is that you don't need to focus on being neat. We're just looking for overall coverage. Now I am trying not to cover up my yellow stripes, but if I do, maybe that stripe didn't really need to be there. And if I really did want it there, I'll show you how to bring it back. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind with the black is to keep your brush loaded up with paint. Not too much, but if you don't have enough, you're not going to get any paint on your canvas. Still working here, covering up all this white. And again, just quick brush strokes getting in here. Here over in this section, I am trying to be a little bit neater. I don't want to cover up too much of the miniature, but I definitely don't want to cover up my little yellow stripes here. I kind of like this section. And now that we're getting some paint on here, this guy's starting to take some shape. It almost looks like we know what we're doing. Okay, now that looks pretty good. What do we want to approach next? I know. Let's get to my favorite part. Alright, so we're going to clean off our brush, odorless paint thinner. Shake off the excess in the little can I got down here. Beat the devil out of it. Okay. Now that we have a clean brush, we're going to be painting this large and wonderful axe with some red. Here we want to get some good coverage. Make sure we get both sides, top and bottom. And we're going to cover the handle also. And you know what? I think this looks pretty good. I'm switching my paint to a bright silver now. I'm going to start with the handle of the axe. This should help make the whole thing pop just a little bit. Now for me, I don't want to cover the red part, just the handle. We'll get the top and the bottom too. And while we have some silver loaded on our brush, I'm going to use it to cover the front and the back section of these two shoulder LRMs. Just like that. It looks pretty good. I'm looking at this guy here, and I'm thinking that the story in my mind, the picture in my mind, we had to replace these knees. So I'm going to cover them up with some silver. He's a little bit older. He needed some new ones. And you know what? With our story, we never painted these giant bolts and all the armatures that are holding all the parts together. So we're going to change the color on those also. I am going to be a little careful painting these. But remember, we can always go back and touch these up with black. Black is an easy color to add. Okay, I'm pretty happy with how that one turned out. So we have these vents. We're going to make them stand out. I want to make them stand out a little bit. Let's highlight these with some silver. And for this one, we're just going to lightly bring our brush across the vent. We don't want to fill in the grooves, just hit the raised portions. Earlier, I mentioned it is okay to change your mind, because we can always touch up the Axman. And I've decided to add some yellow at the front rim of the LRM-15s. So first I'm covering the black with some Wraithbone, give me a nice bright base. And then I'm going right back to the contrast yellow. And I like this, it makes me happy. Now, one of the best things about art is that it makes you happy. If it's not making you happy, then you're doing something wrong. Now here's where I'm going to start fixing up all these little holes and patches and bright spots. We're going to use my old friend Nuln Oil and get into all the nooks and crannies. Fill in some of the lighter areas and generally try to avoid the yellow stripes. And we're going to give the LRMs some wash also. We'll just clean this sucker up. Let's not forget to get the handle of the axe. So one thing that I like to do is to find which part of this six-sided base is the front. So I'm going to use some flashy Gitz yellow, highlight this front section of the base. We're going to make this stand out so we know where the front is and where he's looking. And you know what? As I'm looking at this, these stripes look worn and a little old. So it's time for a touch-up. We need a new paint job. We're going to add some of this bright yellow, and we're going to put some fresh paint right on to these stripes. Would you look at that? A little change, and this is a whole new mech. I actually like the bright yellow surrounded by the fading one. So I'm not going to fully cover this contrast yellow, but I am going to get most of it. And this is an easy, fun thing to do, isn't it, folks? You know, if you feel extra creative, you can always paint little designs on your pieces. Maybe you can add some numbers, or maybe a logo or a symbol. Or maybe even a happy little tree. Here I'm going to add some brighter red to the axe. Mostly just the edges. I'm looking to give it some more interest. And although I'm happy with how this axe looks, I think our pilot has been chopping down parts of a forest to make a little log cabin by the lake. I'm going to add some titanium white to the extreme edges here. This axe has clearly been used recently. I mentioned earlier that we'll have plenty of time to touch up on our miniature. And I'm going to do that right now. Taking our time to fill in some of the remaining white and bright sections. Get those nice and dark with some more black. And while we have the black, here's another thing I like to do. I switch to this larger brush, get some Mars black on the other 5 sides of the base. And you don't have to be too careful here either. I'm just looking for even coverage on the sides. We'll put something on the base later, but now is the perfect time to get all these edges taken care of with a nice black. As you can see, I've already put my fake ground here, and I did this off camera to allow it time to dry. Last thing I'm going to do is paint the cockpit window. First we'll brighten it with some of that white, and then use a phthalo blue to create the look of a window. Must be a sunny day out today. I think finally, to finish this up, we're going to give these LRMs some depth. We're going to bring back our Nuln Oil, a little circle pattern here. Just cover in those little spots for the little missiles. Alright, so I think we're going to call this particular miniature done. So from all of us here, I just want to say thank you for joining us. Take care and happy painting.